Right. I think we can please keep filling in who you are, where you're from. And I think we can probably just get going. And I just wanting to sort of set the scene of what we're doing here in these series of webinars. So my name is David Larsen from Africa Media Online. And I'm just going to share my screen and hopefully you'll be able to see what I'm seeing. Right. So we are really running a series of webinars on digital curation systems that Africa Media Online is now representing into Africa. And these systems are complementary on the whole, and they form part of what we still call our preservatio stack. And there are different elements to that stack. One is a digital preservation system called Archivault. And so files go into that preservation system and are kept for the long term. And then another part of that is an access system, or making the digital files available to the world. And we have various elements. So MediaGraph is a system that is really best used internally in an organization and for managing the workflow of files and gathering files from perhaps right across your organization, and being able to manage the use rights of those files, and every department having an area to load files, to work with files. So really a great, what we call a work in progress system. And you work with your files until they're in a final state, and then you want to put them into a permanent repository. And so that's what MediaGraph does. Limecraft is really a brilliant system for broadcast archives and audiovisual archives, and has all sorts of amazing AI, speech to text and so on, and really is for large-scale broadcast archives such as SABC or so on. That's a really great system. Picvario is a system that is very applicable as a front-end sort of access system for media collections like picture libraries and that sort of thing. And then AM Quartex is really what we are speaking about today, and its ideal strength is in the area of heritage and academic collections. It includes also IIIF, which is International Image Interoperability Framework, which is a set of open APIs for being able to share content across academic institutions and so on. And so that's really what we're going to be focusing on today. And then the last system that we have done a webinar last week on, and all of these webinars have been recorded, is really a customer or a visitor engagement system. It's kind of pushes content through to a mobile app, and as someone is walking around your museum, it'll pop up with data, information. You can do ticketing, all sorts of things on that app. So it's really around visitors to a particular heritage site or so on. And so really what we're focusing on today is AM Quartex, and we have Rebecca Lynd with us from AM Digital, that is the holding company of AM Quartex as the product. And Rebecca is going to take us through AM Quartex and show you how this system is just so brilliant for really heritage and academic collections and showcasing that material. And we're very excited to be partnering with them in that regard. So let me stop sharing and hand over to Rebecca.
Thank you, David.
And just to say to everyone who's just arrived, please fill in the notes just who you are, where you're from. That would be great. Thank you. Go for it, Rebecca.
Thank you, David. So yeah, hopefully you should be able to see my screen now, which is showing our Quartex demo site. But before I kick into today's presentation, I just wanted to introduce myself fully. So I'm Rebecca Lynd, and I am a senior product specialist on the Quartex team here at AM. In that capacity, I run all onboarding, training sessions, and help with site builds for clients in UK, Europe, Asia, and the Pacific, and more recently in Africa. And we're really excited to be working with Africa Media Online recently on their Desmond Tutu archives. That's been wonderful to work on. So without further ado, let's jump into what is Quartex. And I probably should just have a bit of housekeeping. There'll be time for questions at the end, but I think David is going to manage the kind of the chat on here. So feel free to ask questions as they come to you there, and then David can ask them at the end. Okay, so what is Quartex? It is a cloud-based digital asset management system that enables libraries and archives to manage and enhance their archival materials, paired with a content management system as well. And it's through this that we can also publish that material in an intuitive and visually engaging way. It's through this platform that AM both publish our own industry-leading digital collections, and we work with some of the world's leading archives and libraries to create products to service the academic market primarily. But it's also now the means through which we offer institutions and universities, theological institutions. We have a real range of customer base, and we give them the opportunity to build out digital access points to their own collections. So in today's short demonstration, I'm going to show some of the key platform functionality and the ways in which some of our existing clients are making use of these to increase visibility and access to their collections, but also boost engagement and better facilitate teaching opportunities with them. So if we're looking at this Quartex homepage, demo homepage to begin with them, the first thing to note straight off the bat really is that
Rebecca, sorry, we're not seeing your screen, by the way.
You're not. Let's have another go.
No, you might need to share.
Sorry, I thought we had done. There we go. Let's go back. Can we see it now?
Yes, it's starting to appear. Yes.
Great. Okay. I think maybe if there's a lag, let me know, but we'll push on. So yeah, sorry, this is the demo site homepage. And if I scroll down, the first thing really to note is that all Quartex sites can be fully customizable from the CMS. So there's no need for IT intervention or existing CSS knowledge or expertise. Administrators can apply institutional branding very easily in the back end. And throughout this presentation, I'm going to show a couple of other sites. You'll get a glimpse of how other customers have applied style guidelines of their own to give their sites unique and identifiable looks and adhere to their internal branding stipulations. So it also is not immediately apparent, but it's worth noting that all Quartex sites can also be built to be fully compliant with the latest WCAG 2.1 AA accessibility standards. And they're fully navigable via keyboard controls and compatible with screen readers. So we've kind of got the box all ticked there as well. And they're responsive, so they can render well on any device. So beyond styling and colors, another common way in which customers demonstrate customization of their sites is through collection display. So if I navigate to the collections here, so you can see here that we're presenting those in a tile format. Multiple collections can be added. We have customers with just a handful of collections over and up to customers using, over 100 collections as well. So there's no kind of minimum or maximum kind of amount of content that you can put into Quartex. And each of these tiles kind of will link through to contextual information or a dedicated list of materials that are in that collection, depending on how much kind of information about the collection we wanted to or had available to present. So if I click through to the Browning Letters collection here, this that tile links through to this kind of contextual page where you can read a bit more about the Brownings, who were Victorian poets for anyone who's not familiar with them, a little bit of bio about them, the project partners, and people can download kind of ebooks, things like that for our download files content item, and just read more about the collection on Baylor's website. So Baylor with a contributing archive for that collection. If I return, we just look at a different example. I can go to the First Folios collection. So these are lots and lots of different versions of Shakespeare's First Folio, sourced from the Folger Library largely. I just wanted to show you here that this one links straight through to a list view instead. So we're just seeing materials from this First Folios collection here. We had less contextual information about it, so we just presented it in this format here. So there are options to kind of pathway through to content. We'll come back to that in a second. I also wanted to show you another client who's doing something a little bit differently. So this is Congregational Library and Archives in the US, and they have a vast number of collections. So they are actually using an alternative display method again. So they are using our A to Z content item, where end users can navigate to collections of interest based on the first character of the collection name. So that's a really nice kind of use case where you just have too many collections to present in a tile format or similar. And Texas Wesleyan, again, are another example who are presenting through their secondary navigation. So they have collections in their primary navigation, and then you can link through to the individual collections from their secondary navigation. So most of these go to list pages, as we saw with demo, but they have examples as well where they do have more information about the collection, or in this particular case, they have information about the Mason Johnson Theatre collection, but importantly, as well as allowing users to browse the collection, at the bottom of their page, they have this content item called Share Your Story. And we have a few clients that are doing this, where they're using static content pages across their site to kind of invite their audience to help expand their collection and increase community engagement. And we've had some really lovely kind of success stories from doing that as well. So people emailing in with photographs saying, I have a photograph of a performance at the institution, I would like to contribute it to the archive, or I know who's in that photograph, that kind of thing. So it's a nice way to kind of service your user base in a more dynamic way, I guess. So if I just toggle back to demo. So static pages can be built out to be more dynamic, as we've just seen, but we not only in terms of static content items, in terms of the design and look of them, but we also have lots of dynamic interactive features that are available on our sites. So the first one to look at under the discovery aids in demo are the digital exhibitions. So we present digital exhibitions in Quartex. There's a few different ways to go about it, but we do have a kind of bespoke exhibition feature that's built into the platform for our users. So this allows you to present information about materials that are in your site, but also outside of it. You can present information kind of on the left here and just navigate through different materials. You can also present AV examples here. And you can link back to materials within your collection. So there's a couple of interactive features I'm going to show you today, but all of them are really, really successful in introducing primary materials and your collections to users who are maybe less familiar with using these kind of digital sites, especially students and young people, and kind of introducing them in a kind of less intimidating way. So rather than being approached with a huge documents list of all your materials, it kind of eases them in, gets them interested, and then there are nice, easy pathways back into the primary materials. So if I show you another customer site, so this is Harris County Public Library, they have exhibitions highlighted in their primary navigation, and they have used this extensively, this feature, because they've had so much success with it. So you can see here all of the exhibits that they have created. They've chosen to present all of theirs. Other clients choose to have like an exhibit of the month, and they present that on their homepage, and they change that each month or whatever frequency they prefer to. But you can just see how many exhibits have been created by this client. So if we click onto one of them, this was one of the exhibitions they created for their 25-year anniversary of this particular branch. And we navigate through, we can see again just more examples of this. But they have their related page configuration set up. So a user simply clicks on this if they're interested in the item, and this links them, the user, back in to that material in the public interface. So they can then, you know, zoom in and read that fully, read the whole document, all 4 pages, read more about the through the metadata, and do various other things, which we'll come to in a moment. But just showing you that kind of linkage back there. So the next kind of interactive feature I wanted to show you is our map features. Harris County have one as well, but I actually want to show you this one here on the Shakespeare's Globe website. Just to give you another glimpse of another client that's using it. So this is, yeah, the Globe Theatre in London, and they are really interested in involving young people in Shakespeare, the history of Shakespeare, introducing it to them, especially to those that maybe wouldn't do in their either academic life or outside. So this map is kind of presented in a chronological format, so users can use the bar at the top to navigate through the time period of Shakespeare's time, and you'll see these little icons changing on the map here depending on what the era is. And they each represent a kind of different theatre space or venue. So a user simply needs to click on one of these. It opens up this kind of card, and it has information about the venue, in this case, the Fortune Theatre, when it opened, burned down, all these kind of like key dates related to the venue. And then they've chosen to present links to all of the different theatre companies that performed at that space in this time. And again, users can click back to either learn more about the theatre venue or about the theatre company by clicking on any of those links, and it takes the user back into the material to browse them. It's not taking the user to a specific document, it's taking them to all assets here that are tagged with that theatre company. And that is powered by our dynamic metadata type called a control vocabulary. And again, I'll talk a little bit more about that today as well. Okay, let's just close that one out. The last interactive feature I wanted to mention today is our timeline feature. So this is a site by the University of Toronto, Mississauga, and they have 2 sites with us actually. And this one is dedicated to highlighting 2 of their really key and well-used collections. And they introduce it in a really lovely way through the use of our timeline at the bottom of the page here. So they tell the story of their collection through a single commodity, the banana, the humble banana, but it's actually a really wonderful timeline that if any of you are interested, I definitely recommend checking out. And a user can just work through it, learn more about the collection, they can find out more information, you can have as much as you'd like really there. They can view photographs from the collection or elsewhere, and again, link back to the collection as well if they want to learn more about any of the themes, as well as any kind of documents, and read kind of essays that have been written by specialists in the field. Okay, so that's an example of the timeline there. Where to go next? Okay, so we've looked a lot already then at how the digital archive site can look and how it can kind of engage users visually, but it needs to do far more than just visually appeal, of course. And our Quartex site is also carefully crafted to have a really powerful search capacity. So I'm going to just go back to the demo main site out of that exhibit. And I want to just illustrate this with a simple search. So there are multiple levels of search, the first being site-wide. So I'm going to run a site-wide search here for the term war. And we'll see that we get 59 results for that search. A user can obviously then start browsing results that are here, or they can further refine down their list. So if I wanted to just see results that are found in metadata, because our search is metadata and full text transcription, we'll talk about transcription later, and we'll see some examples. But for this section, I'm just going to highlight metadata only. And then I also want to limit it by video, so I can apply that sidebar filter there. So now I've limited my results down to 2. I've honed down straight from 59 records to 2 of interest. So really easy access to relevant content. So that's site-wide. We also have an advanced search on every site. So that's a separate page where users can also run a site-wide search, but apply Boolean operators and things like that. So for more advanced academics who kind of really want to mine the data in your site, that's useful. But the next thing I wanted to show is collection level search. So I am not going to go to the obvious war and conflict collection, which is going to have lots of hits for war. I'm going to go instead to the manuscripts collection here. And show you that we have a collection at the top of a list page. We have collection level search bar. So I'm going to make the same search for war here. And instead of the 59 results we got site-wide, we get 13 here. So we know that within this specific collection, there are 13 documents or assets that have hits for the term war within them. Now, if I go through to click into one of those assets, I could obviously further refine by the sidebar filters again, but that search is extended through to the asset itself. So war has been remembered in the asset level search bar. I can run a new search here and it will just search this particular document. But if I zoom in here, I don't know how clear it is for you, but we can see the first instance, the first hit highlighted in the image viewer. If I scroll down, we'll see that there are other kind of snippets here telling you where other hits for that term have been found and how many we have in total. And we can simply click through to any of those to jump to that hit. If the hit was found in metadata, like the free-text fields, that would be highlighted too. And we can also see it highlighted in the transcript here, which can be viewed alongside the image viewer. The hit jumper can be used to jump to the next hit in situ. So I can again just zoom in for you there. So you can see the next hit there. And again, in the transcript to the side. Excuse me. Okay, so that is an asset level search as well. The very last thing I wanted to mention on search as well is, again, just running the same site-wide search, this time from the masthead bar. I just wanted to draw your attention to the fact that documents are presented first. But if you see to the right-hand side, there's a static content tab. The user can toggle to that and see all hits of the same term found across static content. So this is a kind of USP for Quartex, really, that we allow search of static content as well. So if I click through to the hit found on our Doodles of World War II prisoner exhibition, you'll see that the terms are highlighted across static content, and that will run across all eligible static content items on a site. So again, for anyone with visual impairment, or even on paper, for anyone who doesn't have visual impairment, if you've got a very text-heavy page, it's just incredibly helpful to quickly navigate to the areas of interest. Okay. So I want to get into the nitty-gritty of metadata display and configuration as well. I come from an editorial background. I actually worked as an editor on the AM side of the business when I first joined the company, and metadata wrangling, managing collections was kind of my bread and butter. So I love this stuff. I'm really passionate about it. And Quartex does it incredibly well. So this collection is a series of interwar periodicals or magazines called Home and Gardens. I'm just going to open one of these up here. So initially, the first thing you see beside the image viewer is summary metadata. So the metadata you see on this page, summary and full document details, is metadata that represents the asset. So in Quartex, an asset is a digital record. So this could be a single page, or it could be, in this case, like a 600-page volume of this magazine. So it represents the whole volume. However, you can also have other layers of metadata in Quartex. So whilst it's 600 odd pages long, we can add metadata to every individual page. We call them items in Quartex. So every single page here can have its own metadata. It's quite a lengthy document, so those thumbnails are just going to load on the side there. But what we've done is we've provided this contents tab using image level metadata to pull out every single article that is included in this magazine. So if a user comes to this and goes, right, I don't know where to start, they can browse this content on the tab on the side and go, great, I'm interested in the charm of white interiors. And they can navigate straight to that article in the magazine. You can also use item level metadata to pull out anything, really. This is just an example. We have other clients that have music collections that are using item level metadata to pull out tracks on an album, for example. So it's like very, very flexible functionality. And we also have section level metadata. So I guess the best way to describe this really is, imagine you have a book as your asset, and you have chapters, and you want to present navigation by a chapter. In this case, we are browsing by issue of magazine. So if I click through and I want to browse, okay, I want to go straight to the October 1919 issue, I can do that at a click of a button as well. So that's layers of metadata. And then when we talk about metadata itself and the configuration of it, you can see examples here of plain text. So the title, date, and identifier are plain text. They do little more than just simply provide information. But there are other fields such as language and source here, and we've got a few more at the bottom that have this kind of grey lozenge appearance. I don't know if you can see that through the screen share, but they are presented in a kind of lozenge look. So I mentioned control of vocabularies very briefly earlier, but these are dynamic metadata fields that are configured in your DAMs to allow for linkage between assets tagged with the same term. So in this case, we have subject set up as a control vocabulary. And if anyone was interested in this document and thought, okay, I want to see other assets in the site that are also tagged with the term architecture, they can click on that tag, and they will then be returned with a list of, in this case, all 10 documents across the site that are tagged with that term. Common use cases for that functionality are kind of formats, subfont information if someone wants to see materials across similar subfonts, that kind of thing. But we also have another dynamic metadata field exemplified by this next volume option here. So this is called related assets, and it allows administrators to form links between assets that are connected in a way beyond shared metadata. So we wanted here in this particular instance to allow a user to navigate very easily to the next volume of this magazine. So it might have different terms of metadata. A user can click on that tab and go straight through to the second volume. So this would be useful perhaps if to take the Tutu archive as an example. We've been working on that recently with David. You might want to link through from a photograph of Desmond Tutu with his wife to a letter about his wife or something. So the connection is the individuals involved. So yeah, that's a lovely tool to aid navigation again. I think that's probably everything in terms of metadata, other than to say, and just to highlight at the bottom of the document details here, we also can support HTML in our metadata. So that allows for the display of logos, graphics, if you had like a Creative Commons graphic you wanted to include here. And you can also include links out to associated sites or finding aids as well. Okay, so the image viewer then, we've seen it a few times now, but this is our in-platform image viewer. It's powered by OpenSeaDragon. It has loads of really powerful kind of zoom capacities we've seen. You can toggle full screen, rotate, all the kind of common controls you would expect with a state-of-the-art image viewer. But we also do allow for use of the IIIF viewer, the Mirador viewer that David mentioned earlier, which allow, if for anyone who's unfamiliar with the feature, excuse me. too early in the morning. My voice hasn't caught up with me. For anyone who's not familiar with IIIF, it allows you to present an asset from Quartex or anywhere really on this external image viewer and present it against another image hosted anywhere else that also has a IIIF manifest. So we're just talking about the first folios collection that I showed you earlier. You could load up one of the first folios from the folder archive, which is what we have in the site, with a copy from the Bodleian or from anywhere else across the world that also has a IIIF manifest. So it's a great option for cross-repository research and teaching. But in Quartex, we also have another image viewer that's particular to our platform called the compare page, which is indicated by this compare button at the bottom. So users can add documents to the compare list. I've already done this, just preloaded it for the use of today's demo. And they can click to compare documents and they will be returned with this screen. So it looks very much like IIIF in that you can present two documents side by side, but this has the added benefit of being able to then navigate each of those documents by the section metadata. So if I wanted to look at Act 4, Scene 1 in this version and Act 4, Scene 1 in this document, you can see them side by side and you can really inspect the differences. So this is the same, exactly the same act and scene. You can see differences in pagination, in display. It's a really lovely comparative tool, hence the name. So just get rid of that one again and just navigating back to the other buttons under the image viewer. We have a download button here. So downloads can be controlled across your site at collection level, site level, and also we can apply restrictions to single asset downloads as well. Which is obviously really important for lots of people who have collections that have copyright sensitivity and things like that. That's controlled in the administrative interface, so you can customize that as you would. The embed button allows you to create an embed URL so that an asset in Quartex can be used in a kind of a presentation or something like that. The bookmark buttons here allow you to bookmark an entire asset or just a page within it or an item within it to what we call our My Account feature, which is available through the masthead on every site. And a user just signs up for a free account and they can save documents to that, bookmark documents to that, and save searches as well to allow for kind of future returns to inspect that material. And they can also share it with colleagues and peers, that kind of thing. So those are those buttons. It's not also immediately obvious on the public interface until you kind of click through to look at anything, but we also have access controls set up across our Quartex site, or available, I should say, across Quartex sites. So we have our American Indian newspaper collection here. If I click through to that collection, you can read more about it. If I try and access one of the assets here, I'm prompted that I don't have access to the collection. So I can request access, and there are different authentication mechanisms that users administrators can apply. So in this case, I've got it set up as a passcode that I have remembered because I have access to it. So if I hadn't had this saved, I would just copy in or type in, sorry, my passcode, and it would permit me to enter the into that asset detail. Other passcodes that are available include IP range, username and password, and it can be really useful for locking down certain areas of your site, either completely or to specific users. So again, our key market is generally the academic sector, and we get lots of universities saying, okay, I want this material to be available to the English department, or this material to be available to the history department, or anything like that. So we can lock it down temporarily or for a permanent, like fixed term. So that is available too. So that is probably enough, all I have time for in terms of front end today. I did also want to just give you a quick glimpse of the back end. So when you're an administrator using the platform, when you log in, this is the first screen you will see, called the My Assets dashboard. And this is a really great place for kind of project leads and managers to keep tabs on project progress. So you can apply site analytics here. So you can add in a Google Analytics code to allow for tracking on your front end. And each of these little widgets kind of tell you key information about your project, what your transcription usage is looking like, how many assets you have and the status of them. Status impacts eligibility for promotion, so that's really key. And these can, if some of these are more interesting to you than others, you can rearrange them as you would like. It saves automatically for return usage. So it's kind of a key place for you to kind of look when you first log in. You can also see kind of if you've got a large team working on it, if you had multiple users in here, they would be listed. So you can see who's been working on what, when. There's a nice kind of little auditing widget, that one. But really, this is where you would upload your assets, you would add metadata. So just to talk to those very briefly, upload of assets is largely conducted and is available like in terms of batch upload of material through our Quartex Uploader application. So it's a one-time kind of download and then it's available to use. And David and his team have been using that a lot recently, so they would be able to attest to how easy that is to use. You can also use FTP if you would prefer. Metadata can be added in platform. It can be imported if you have it in existing CSVs or TSV files as well. And we can also, through OAI PMH functionality, harvest data from other aggregators that may have your data stored already. Field configuration in Quartex is really flexible too. So we've got some standard fields set up here. We have clients that come to us and are very adamant that they want to adhere to an industry standard schema. So they might want to adhere to Dublin Core, ISAG, MARC, just to name a few. That's very easy to do. There's actually a field cluster where you can like pick which one you would like to drop in, and it pre-creates all your fields for you. It's at the click of a button. You don't have to do any of the kind of field configuration arrangement at all. It's very, very useful. But for other clients, they want to have either a combination of a standard schema with some custom fields or just go custom completely. And that's also very easy to do. We've got a field set up here, but I would just add custom field and add a new one. Calling it whatever you would like the field to display as. You then select your field type. So we talked about the different types, free text. You can also have a date field, controlled vocabulary, and related assets. But I did want to just highlight these other two columns here, field required and promote. Now, these are really useful administrative fields. So field required allows you to dictate whether or not a certain metadata field must be populated in order to be promoted. So it's a nice quality checking mechanism. So for example, copyright is always a go-to example. You might select your copyright field or your rights field here, add a field requirement of yes, and then no material can be promoted inadvertently to your site that doesn't have a copyright statement. And promote then on the right-hand side works similarly in that it controls promotion eligibility. So most of these are set to yes, but there will be a couple. There's one here said restricted no. So another example I like to use to illustrate this is copyright donor information. So whilst you would want to promote a copyright line and statement, you may have for administrative eyes only information about the copyright donor, their address, their information, any kind of personal information or sensitive information that you want to retain in the administrative interface with the administrative teams, but not necessarily promote to the public interface. So that gives you the flexibility of retaining all of your key archival information and not having to promote all of it. Okay, and the last thing today that I really wanted to highlight is the transcription that we have in the back end. So just wait for that to just load. So this is loading up the manage assets table. So this is really the hub, the spine of your site. So this details every single asset you've uploaded. It pairs the metadata with it. You can see various filters and sort options to arrange your list. You can see everything limited to one collection if you chose to. This is also where you run transcription. So you can select single or multiple assets for transcription. You can also cherry pick individual items within a compound asset for transcription as well. So if you had a complex compound asset, say you had a set of memoirs and within it there were diaries, but there were also oral histories or various other different media types in there, you could choose to selectively apply, say, OCR to the printed memoir and then AV transcription to the video file. But just to illustrate here, I'm going to select simply 2 assets and I would click Run OCR. These assets have HDR run against them already, so if I chose to run, they would be ineligible to run, but you can see the pane is opening here. And it gives you a bit of warning information about, processing, tells you how many kind of credits you have at your disposal. And then you literally just click run and it will run transcription in the back end. You can carry on working in the system. And that's true of OCR, HDR, and AV. So for anyone who wasn't familiar with HDR, that's our handwritten text recognition functionality. We saw a little bit of a quick demo earlier of that on the manuscript page. But it works in the same way as OCR across print and manuscript material. And it can be a really useful kind of starting point for researchers struggling to read certain hands. We also have quite a few clients that are using, we have different user roles in Quartex as well. So you can give somebody permission, limited permission to work in the DAMs that can't run a promotion, but could edit transcription to improve accuracy and that kind of thing. So we can get students involved or researchers involved in kind of aiding with transcription efforts. And AV is AWS transcription for audio and video. So we can have a quick look at, I don't think we saw an example of an AV asset. So let's just quickly show you one of those and then I'll pass back to David for questions because I see that time is running short. Try and filter here. So I'm going to go to type. Let's do film and oral history. So these are all the films and oral histories in the collection. Let's pick this one. So transcription appears on the right-hand side again. It's time-coded as well, and it will automatically scroll as the video plays. Turn the volume off for now. Excuse me. But as that video progresses, closed captions can be added. These can also be edited as well in the DAMS interface. So a really lovely display, and again, fully searchable as well. Okay, I think that's probably all we've got time for in terms of demo. So I'll pass back to David.
Thanks so much, Rebecca. That's really helpful. Are there any questions that you might have for Rebecca? Anything that came to mind that you want her to answer? Otherwise, I have a couple of questions. You might need to unmute in order to ask your question, or you can type it in the chat. Right, Rebecca, it doesn't seem like there are any forthcoming questions, but I'd like to ask, can you have multiple public interfaces from your collection?
Yeah, you absolutely can. So that's another real strength of Quartex is that a single DAMS can power multiple public interfaces. So we saw earlier, let me just navigate out of their exhibition, Harris County, I really should have got some water prepared for this. Harris County Public Library have a site here. But if you bear with me, I can also show you the Harris County Archive site. So both of these sites look very different, and they have different material presented to accessible through them. Put them side by side for you. But they are powered by the same dams. So it's a really it's quite a common requirement for some of our clients that they need to have multiple sites to service the different needs. So this is servicing the archive and the library, but we've had examples before of people needing a secondary site for like internal marketing teams. So they might want to present their archive, but also then if they've got a particularly, rich visual material, they might want to have a second site for marketing teams to access. So if they're looking for social media campaigns, marketing campaigns, they can access the second kind of, it's still internal, but public facing site that is powered by all the lovely like search functionality that we've seen to enable them to access relevant content very, very quickly. So yeah, it is possible.
Great. Another question: how regularly are enhancements made to the platform?
Yeah, that's a common question too. So Quartex is, we're committed to continuous development, and it's often customer-led development as well. So we have, for all of the customers using Quartex, we have a shared space called the Quartex Community Platform. That is, they can do lots of things there, but amongst those things is requesting development, and they appear as kind of like little tickets, I guess. And other customers can see what other people are asking for. They can comment on them, they can vote for them. And as much as possible, our development team can take that into consideration as we develop the platform and we try and meet those needs, obviously prioritizing the needs that are shared amongst as many customers as possible at once. But in terms of cadence, we tend to release iteratively. So we have things releasing almost every week, certainly every month. So it's a constantly evolving site with new features and enhancements being added regularly.
And those enhancements are available to those who are subscribers without.
Yeah, so most of the enhancements are kind of a site-wide. Some of them will be specific to, we have packages in Quartex. So there are 3 packages available to cater for different user types. So some functionality might be limited to a certain package, but everyone would be notified of the release. And if they have interest in a feature that doesn't necessarily sit in their package at that time, we can have a conversation about adding that to their site.
Great. And do you support orphan records on the platform?
Yes, we do. I think so. Yeah, orphan records is a really common term for them. In Quartex, we call them metadata only records. So in the demo site, just navigating to the first folios collection. Apologies for anyone who's familiar with what this is. I don't want to just assume people know, so I will just talk to it. So this is an example of an orphan or a metadata only record here. So this is an asset for which you have metadata but don't yet have a digital image or file representing it. So this is quite common where institutions are running digitization initiatives alongside building out their sites, for example. So they have the metadata, they've created metadata for an asset that they have physically on site but isn't yet digitized. So they want to present the metadata, but you can see no image viewer appears. But later, if they do manage to digitize that content and they upload the file, it will be paired with this metadata and then it will appear alongside each other as we've seen previously. But some people do never get to the digitization of everything. So it's just a really useful way of letting your end users know that you do have this material, invite them to visit in person and access it, or just learn a little bit more about it without necessarily being able to see it. And that's really beneficial, obviously, because if you didn't have a metadata only record, they might not know you have it at all.
Wonderful. And I see you support ISAD-G. And so
Yeah.
obviously within the ISAD-G, you're supporting various levels of metadata, item level, and then the whole kind of arrangement structure. Is that correct?
So ISAD-G is a metadata schema, so it will have certain predefined fields that are involved in that schema that users can then essentially map their metadata to allow them to adhere to that shared schema, and that just enables easier sharing with other aggregators that also use that particular schema.
Okay, great. And what are the exciting projects that you've been working on recently?
Oh wow, that's a good one. I mean, it was really amazing to work on the Desmond Tutu archive with your team recently. I'm also working with, we've just had a convent join in Australia, which is the first of our first institution to come on as a convent, which is really interesting, called the Sisters of Mercy. That's really exciting to be working on that one. And then I was working with the Royal Shakespeare Company recently on the first folio project that you saw a glimpse of some of the first folios in our demo site. So that's the Royal Shakespeare Company in Stratford in the UK. That's wonderful. And Cork Public Library in Ireland actually was another recent one. So yeah, we've got a real variety of projects running at the moment. And a lot more running in America actually, that a colleague of mine leads up. But yeah, really exciting seeing it all expand across the rest of the world at the moment too.
Great. I see there's a question from Johan. Are there any standards applied to metadata?
Hello.
Yeah, Johan, carry on.
Yes, thanks, Dave. No, you actually answered the question of ISAD-G. My question around that then is, I work a lot with ICA standards because I implemented Atom that runs at the National Archives on ISAD, and I find it very heavy. There's about 50 metadata fields or 50 plus metadata fields.
Yeah.
And the National Archives then decided to use 8 or 9.
Yeah.
Now, on that is, you can also add custom fields, or can you also add the custom fields to the standard metadata that I said?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So the standard fields allow you to drop in a standard very quickly as that field cluster I mentioned. But you can also remove anything that's not necessary, or indeed you can leave them there in the back end and just not populate those fields on your assets. Any fields that are even created in your DAMs but not populated in your assets won't display on your front end. So just because they appear, if you dropped in all of the ISAD-G fields, you're not bound to fill all of them in. And yes, you can combine them with custom fields.
Great. Thank you. And I see Desiree is asking, what about copyright? Can assets be protected from being copied or downloaded?
Yeah, so I was talking very quickly, so you may not have captured it, and maybe I didn't fully explain it, but that download option that we're seeing here can be turned off for your site. So you can stop assets from being downloaded from your public interface completely at collection level, site-wide, and on an asset basis. In terms of being copied, if the download is off, there's not really a way to copy it beyond I guess screen grab, which at the moment we can't prohibit, but we are looking into being able to prohibit screen grab as well. So yeah, and quite a lot of our users will add watermarks to their images prior to ingest as well. So that obviously helps with preventing, them being able to repurpose images in any way.
Great. Thank you, Rebecca. Any other questions? We've got 2 minutes left.
Some good questions. Thank you, everyone.
Right. No other questions from anyone? What do you think? What do you think of this? Would this be helpful for you? Feel free to unmute and tell us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks to Lani.
I'm hoping the silence isn't that it's not useful. Just everyone's just information overload processing.
Yeah. Certainly, I'm excited about this. I mean, this is exactly the kind of system that we were trying to get to for heritage clients, and just your incorporation of IIIF and yeah, just the display. It's been very thoughtfully put together. How you display metadata, how you display items, and the capacity to do exhibitions and timelines and all of those really wonderful things for showcasing material, while you've got all the assets in the back end and you can search those and the power of the search. So all of that is very exciting for us, having worked on this sort of thing for 20 something years. I think AM Quartex is a really mature product. Yeah. Good. Okay, time is up. Thank you so much, everyone, for being part of this and for your interest. And we look forward to further interaction about it. Thank you, Rebecca. And thank you so much, Mark, for joining, also from AM Digital. And thank you to all of you coming from the different institutions and organizations that you come from. And good. And just remember, we still have other webinars coming up. I think it's Limecraft next, or it may be Mediagraph or Limecraft, and you're free to join those. And we have those on our webinars page on our website. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
All the best.
Bye.
Bye.